uh, Late night with Leighton. I'm just hanging out tonight. We're just gonna look over a couple stories. Felt like doing something. Ended up taking a little bit longer than I thought. Decided to kind of kick back, take a shower and stuff. We're gonna talk about a few news stories I saw over this last week. These are things that I just don't really want to bring into the Outlawed Thoughts episode, which will be happening tomorrow. Our typical Monday show got pushed back. There were a few people that couldn't make it for this episode. I wanted to make sure they were here to co-host, so they're going to be in on tomorrow's stream. Yeah, so we're going to go and start with this one, which I think is what most people are talking about in the general kind of news area or mainstream media narrative, which is we got Elon Musk pulling out of his Twitter deal. And this is something I think has gotten a lot of people's attention, of course, because, you know, obviously people on the right really wanted Elon Musk to purchase Twitter. And I've talked again on this channel, especially multiple times, on how I thought people were missing things a little bit. Truthfully, the way Elon Musk does things is very sporadic, and I think the guy is nowhere near as smart as people give him credit for. But we have this happen, and so I think a lot of people have missed kind of what this actually means. He's not wrong here in this meme that he has uploaded. They said I couldn't buy Twitter. They said I wouldn't. They wouldn't disclose bot info. Now they want to force me to buy Twitter in court, and now they have to disclose bot info in court. That is true to a certain extent. If Twitter chooses to sue Elon Musk, and Elon Musk uses the bot information as his defense, then in discovery, he would gain access to the information that he's been waiting for. Sorry, I had to die real quick. But on the other side of that coin is, well, $1 billion, which he will have to pay if he loses his lawsuit and all of that. Here's the real awesome part. Regardless of how much people hate Elon Musk, regardless of how much people think he might not be intelligent, or as intelligent as he gets credit for, whatever the case may be, this is a win-win situation for him, and here's how. Either he wins the court battle, he is not forced to purchase Twitter, he learns all the bot information, and then Twitter stock drops to an all-time low, and the company might not survive it. And that is realistic, very realistic. The company is not in a good space economically. You have a looming economic crisis, inflation, all these different things play into that. The stock value of Twitter crashing after a court battle with Elon Musk would probably either force the company into some form of bankruptcy or sell-off. Now, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe they get some other investor to come in, which is probably what would happen. But maybe that investor's Elon anyway, right? Or they force Elon to buy the company, in which case he gets what he wanted anyway. Sure, he has to pay more than he thought to begin with, unless this allows him to renegotiate, which in my opinion he can do anyway. So this is a win-win for him. And unfortunately for the people who dislike Elon, he's kind of playing 4D chess at this point, in the sense that he's kind of acting just as troll as he is on Twitter, just as much of a troll in business as he is in the real world as he is on Twitter. We'll put it that way. But I wanted to talk about this now because I don't really think it's something we need to go in depth in on Outlawed Thoughts, and I'd like to spend that show exploring a little bit of the stuff going on with Hunter Biden. Hi to Shannon in the chat, and we're going to jump into this other story that I saw, which I thought was, this is hilarious, and I think will Definitely makes sense to the libertarians out there. Uh, this CNBC article. I talked to 70 parents who raised highly successful adults. Here are 4 things they never did when their kids were young. As parents, we hear a lot about the things we should do with our kids, but it's also important to flip that around and consider what we shouldn't do. As I researched and wrote a book, Raising an Entrepreneur, I interviewed 70 parents who raised highly successful adults about how they help their children achieve their dreams. Now, I'm going to go through some of these and we're just going to briefly read through each one, but I want you to tell me who is raising their kids this way in America today. Like, how many people? They never treated their kids' hobby as a waste of time. Sports, video games, debating, music, bird watching. Every child of the parents I spoke to had a passion outside of the classroom. The parents never veered their kids away from the hobby because they knew it was keeping them mentally active. Okay? So, number 2. They never made all the choices for their kids. It can be extremely tempting to constantly make decisions for your kids. After all, you're the adult. You know your children better than anyone. What else? Sorry, my throat is all fucked up. Than anyone. What else? And you don't want them to suffer. But successful parents resist that temptation. L.A. Gustafson co-founded Feed Projects, providing food in schools for children. Today, she is thought leader and regular speaker on social innovations. We encouraged her to be independent and think for herself. I'd tell her trust but verify, check it out, be sure it's true. Don't drink the Kool-Aid just because everyone else is doing it. That doesn't mean you have to. Pretty straightforward. They never prized money or high-paying degrees over happiness. I've nothing against academic and professional degrees. My husband and I both have graduate degrees, and it has worked for us. But a degree may represent an expensive waste of your child's time. If it has no connection to their interest, and if their only reason for being in school is to get a piece of paper and make the contacts needed to land a high-paying job, someone who loves something enough and works hard at it will find a way to turn it into a living. And even without a degree in that field, and they won't be afraid to tackle an opportunity that won't pay anything for a few years, as they might be if they had to pay off high student debt every month. They never neglected financial literacy. This is a good one. A final note about money. Although the parents I spoke with never pushed their kids towards pursuing a high-paying job, all of them made an effort to teach their children, or kids, about money in one form or another. Joel Holland sold half of his first company, Storyblocks, for $10 million in 2012. He acquired a strong work ethic at an early age, and his sister were given the job of sweeping. He and his sister were given the job of sweeping to get their allowance. The floors had to be clean enough to eat off of. It taught me about hard work, he said. And in grade school, everyone had roller skates, but my parents wouldn't buy them for me. They told me if I want them, you have to save your money. It made me angry at the time, but it really made me appreciate the value of money. So, the reason I found that interesting of an article is because, to me, those are normal parenting tips, right? Like, I don't think any of those are weird. In fact, I think everything in that article is a good way to teach your kid how to be actually literate in real life. But my question is to people who are going to come across this and listen to it is, how many people are actually raising their children that way, right? How many people, especially on the left side, is raising their children like that? I'd argue not very many. Yes, listen, and then that's something the article points to, is that kids need to be tending to their own things and have a passion, have a hobby, right? This is something I never really had. I didn't pick up on a single hobby. I always kind of sporadically picked things, right? Recently, I've made my hobby more of this and editing stuff. But previously, that wasn't really how I did things. My hobby was kind of reselling. It was going to thrift stores and kind of that hustle kind of lifestyle of doing it that way. And that's fine. I like the way I do it now, just kind of working full time and doing my own thing. But it's interesting. I saw that article yesterday and it made me chuckle because it really makes me think about, like, yeah, I just don't think many people are actually raising their kids that way anymore. And it's funny that, I just found it also hilarious that articles on MSNBC, which I think everybody would consider to be a highly left leaning news publication, that of course is publishing something that I don't think the left has ever done ever. Okay. Like artists going to school for gifts, like art and music, so fucking stupid. Yeah, so that's interesting. It used to be that a very small percentage of people went to school for things like the arts. And I don't think I necessarily have a problem with that existing, obviously, but it seems like a pretty dumb thing to go to try to get a degree on. I have a buddy of mine who went to get an art degree. He eventually went into working with Wizards of the Coast. This is a company that manufactures magic cards, Pokemon cards, among a bunch of other things. And, I'll be honest with you, he hated the job and he ended up quitting. And he now runs a studio. Because truthfully, the company that he always wanted to work for, that he eventually did, became kind of, piece of shit business to work for. And they treat their artists like shit. So you end up with a situation where it's kind of like, don't meet your heroes, right? You get a degree, you work real hard, even in an arts degree position. And it doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day anyway, because the job that you waited all that time to get, you don't enjoy. And this is something I mentioned with on the work, on the job experience. That's what you don't get when you do college, right? You're giving up years of your time and you're not getting any actual experience. Like right now, I do night auditing and stuff like that, which is some form of accounting. I do decently enough at that that I'll probably move into some other area of work that involves that. There we go. That was good. Yeah. So, you got to get that work experience in versus school experience. School experience is long term useless. It's not going to get you anywhere. And you know what? The truth is that every single one of these kind of modern teachers that will tell you that this is where you need to be heading towards, which they do. Every teacher in high schools today and even middle schools is talking to kids about what business they're going to go into and what college degree they want to get, what college they want to go to. You're never going to hear them mentioning trade schools. Now, they will do that here in Alaska, but that's because we have a pretty decent, we have a very decent industry of welding, things like that, where you kind of have to have trade schools. It's just kind of a necessity. So in that case, then it makes a lot more sense. But in the majority of states and the majority of public schools, you're not going to find that. You're going to find a bunch of people that are simping for the college, simping for that higher level. And you might be okay with that. I'm personally not. I find it to be abhorrent. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, those colleges don't offer anything to those kids that are really worthwhile. At least not in my opinion. And, that's a scary idea that the state does that, but that is what happens, right? And we all know it. We all accept that you're not really going to gain much from college anymore. And I think especially now, we see people realizing that more and more and more and more. As people wake up to this idea that what are you really benefiting from college? And sometimes you can be benefiting from it. If you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, obviously these are things where you have to, you're going to have to dig in your heels and get into an academic role to some degree. But The Hobbies Angel, I feel like the parents overschedule and push kids to do too much. Parents force kids to do it as a job and not a hobby. Um, yeah, so I think hobbies are important in general, but the way that I would phrase it is to have multiple hobbies. You don't want your kid focusing all their attention on one thing because then I do think the parent probably gets more of a tendency to make it like a religious thing where you have to do this every day or else I'm going to be disappointed with you. And I don't think you want to put your kid in that position. So I think you'd want to move towards more of, just letting them decide what they like to do at home or when they're away for fun. And if as long as it's not something destructive, allow them to do it. Don't be a helicopter parent, right? That shit is deadly now. We talk about all these anxiety issues, we talk about this, and the news media, especially because of all the shootings and because of all the things we've seen happening, they seemingly want to push people towards being these hovering parents who have to see every little thing that their kid does. We do not want to turn into a society that does that to that degree. People need to pay attention to their kids because they need to bring their kids closer to them. Us as a society, we've been pushing our children away from us far too long. Um, whether that's unschooling, homeschooling, pod learning, I don't care what it is, but get your kids out of these public systems because they're going to spend twice as much time with you, or they're going to spend twice as much time with people who actually care for them versus state organizations that are ran by pedophiles and murderers and fucking weird people that don't know what they're fucking doing. I've talked on other streams about the horrible relationships I've had, and especially in this state amongst teachers. But teachers are not like there are good teachers that exist, and then there are people who make a paycheck every month and they know they can't get fired, and they're buddies in unions, and they will abuse your children, they will abuse the system, and they will do it all at the same time. And they get away with it because of those teachers' unions that they have built up. So when I talk about like schooling and education, I'm much more on the side of just get rid of the public schools, let other people deal with this, and everything else will probably flesh itself out by the end. Ultimately, there's tons of other ways to teach people that we've been using for 100 plus years here in the United States that work far better than the public school system. So, I don't have any immediate stories set up. I will say I'm planning on. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do this with somebody else or whether I'm just going to make it a solo thing, but I think I'm going to do some reviews on the Anarchists show that is coming out on HBO Max. It's on the Anarcho Poco stuff, and it's interesting. I was always interested in that event. It's not one I've ever made it out to. I don't really travel out of the country. I haven't yet, and so that's something I'll probably do in the future. I don't travel like I don't like long distance traveling, and long distance traveling within the US is a big difference between long distance traveling outside the US. And also like, I don't know. We're going to look at the documentary. I'm thinking about reviewing it, putting up separate episodes as they are released. I know the first episode is up on HBO now. However, I review them, I'm not sure, because I typically I would want to like EFAP it and have it little clips. Maybe I'll just use some clips from the trailer, do like 5-10 minute little reviews and release them or something. That could be cool. If people want to hear about that and you see this video, you could always let me know in the comments whether that's something you want to see, or let me know in the chat. I was interested to see that documentary. I'm hesitant because, of course, it is HBO that's handling it, and I know that there's a kind of, I'm a certain type of anarchist. There's a lot of other kind of anarchists. Some of those people I don't mesh with. So we'll see how things are put forward as far as the ideas of what anarchism is, because I know that's going to be something that's talked about. I've seen Larkin Rose on Facebook and Twitter and some other places talking about that it's good and it's made by friendly people, and I do like Larkin to an extent, so I'm definitely interested in taking a look at it, and maybe setting up some reviews, maybe with some guests. I can reach out to some people and see if they'd be interested to come on. Definitely. But I guess we can look at some news stories. There is some stuff that we can do, actually, because there was a story I saw earlier just a few minutes ago. I know this show seems kind of ragtag, but that's kind of the point. These ones are just like 30, 40 minutes. It's just kicking back and kind of covering a couple things while I've got time. Because typically when it gets late, I don't feel like going to bed immediately. And, you know, it just is one of those things that I'm kind of always weird hours for me when I want to stream. So, this was interesting. Unification Church puzzled by reports of alleged grudge held by Shinzo Abe assassination suspect. So, the Unification Church said Monday it was puzzled by reports of alleged resentment held against the group by the man suspected of assassinating former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. There is a big distance between having resentment towards our association and killing former Prime Minister Abe. Toshiro Tanaka, the Japan office chairman of the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, told a news conference Monday. So, this is the situation. This guy is a member, or rather, okay, this guy, and this is why they're using this statement, from what I understand. There is a big distance between having resentment towards our association and killing former Prime Minister Abe. Okay. The Unification Church is the Moonies, and this guy apparently disliked them, and apparently that guy had worked with them. That is the situation as I understand it. And I was reading about this earlier, and I'll probably do a deep dive in a couple different articles, see what I can find to talk about this on the show tomorrow, because the whole thing was kind of fast, right? The news cycle has happened pretty quickly with it. It seems like it lasted about 2 days. The CNN's been putting up stuff, Fox has been putting up stuff, but it hasn't been super consistent. And it appears like the Democrats have full-blown decided they do not want Biden to run in 2024, which of course I think most people saw coming. I don't think they ever really wanted him to run. I think they wanted him gone. And I think this Hunter Biden topic is going to make for quite the toxic cauldron of bullshit for any presidency on the Democratic side in 2024 to stomach. Because no matter who runs in 2024, they're going to be connected to Biden's current cabinet, most likely, which is a black spot to an extent. But there's a good chance that the Republicans really want to take this out on Biden. And they're going to do that because they're going to get this red wave, which is going to give them control over aspects that would allow them to make Biden's life a living hell for his last 2 years. Sort of like the same way the Democrats did to Trump 2 years earlier. The thing is that there really isn't much of a chance of a Democrat winning in 2024, and I think most people realize that. Something that I'd like to do on the channel is do a tier list, where we go through who we think is going to run. I'm just deciding whether I want to do that before or after the midterm primaries, and I haven't decided that yet, so I will get back to that idea at some point. But the midterm primaries are going to decide one of two things. Whether it's going to decide whether they go after Biden and attempt to, say, impeach him or straddle his ability to do certain things using the control that the Republicans have, or if they just block everything that he does, let him grind the economy out for 2 years, and then they know that a Republican can come in and win regardless, right? But then that Republican will be able to run off of the economic bolster, which is exactly what Trump is good at running on. So it makes complete sense at this point for the way things are going for us to see Biden not running in 2024. And my guess is you're going to get a Kamala Harris, a Michelle Obama I've seen talked about. That's funny as shit. A Pete Mayor butt stuff. Those are the kind of people I'm thinking are going to be the Democratic nominees, because even the Democratic establishment doesn't want Biden to exist at this point, and that is clear. So that makes it an economic issue. The Republicans love that because they can put Trump up. We knew he was going to win in the first place in the Republican primary, so most of the states will waive and they'll just name him. You're going to confuse people. It's Tuesday already. Your tomorrows are today for the lower 48. Yes, she is right. I will be streaming again. It is 3:38 in the morning here, just FYI. It is actually not light out. I will be streaming again. My time 5:30, but it is 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, and that will be the Outlawed Thoughts program. Of course, with everybody, we're gonna have a little party, react to some of the Hunter Biden goodness, and I will be drinking some wild turkeys then too. But yeah, it'll be a good show. We're gonna have fun, and these shows have been decent on the life front, which I will hopefully be doing every time I do one of these episodes. Just a little chat about life and discussion about what's happening in my world. I've got to move out of this apartment at the end of August. So, as far as the streams go, things like that, there might be like a week or two gap, but I'm going to figure that out. Work out how I can make it function. And then wherever I'm going, I'm hopefully going to be able to stream regularly. I've already set that up to an extent, and I think I should be fine. It just might look pretty crappy until then, but same quality and audio and all that. Other than that, I'm just kind of looking at if I want to move, where I can move. Not really having money to do that right now, which is the frustrating part. And of course, the kind of catch-22 of life, not being able to save to move because the prices are so high in the city that I live in. And, this is something everybody's going to be going through. Maybe I'm just going through it a little bit sooner than everybody else because the prices for property in Alaska raise higher than anywhere else when they do go up. So the rentals here have gotten excruciatingly expensive, so far to the point that there isn't a single rental available in the town that I'm currently residing in. So it is virtually impossible for me to simply rent a new apartment or rent a house at this point. In fact, the housing situation I have now is going to be employee housing, and that's temporary, of course. Oh, no. No pity for me. I am doing fine, in the sense that I've been doing much worse in life. It is just a matter of getting back on your feet and getting the kind of situation working. The problem is that, I like the idea of moving to Florida as soon as possible, but at the same time, right, if I can't get a job, if I don't have housing, if those things aren't met, it's not going to happen. And even if I want to move tomorrow, I'm going to need living expenses for when I get over there and all that stuff. And so there's a level of savings and stuff that has to happen. And the catch-22 that I keep talking about that's going to hit a lot of people the same way as it is me is the people who are like myself who didn't have savings, right? These people, like myself, will have to rent places if they want to move into areas that have housing, but in order to do so, they're going to need money to move in the first place. But if you're living in an area where the rent is already rising, like I am, and you have a housing issue, then how do you save, right? Because if your rent is already high and your living expenses for that area is already so high that you don't have money to put to the side to move, right? Then you're just stuck. And this is a situation that I'm in, and I think a lot of people are going to be in over the next year, especially in rural areas. I don't live in a rural area. I live in a small town. We got 2,000 people here. It's not rural. It's just not big. And realistically, there isn't really anywhere in this state that I could move that would give me really good, better job opportunity, honestly. Um, Seward in Alaska is quickly becoming a state that you should visit rather than live in, and that's really disappointing for me. And of course, it's disappointing, especially because I'm stuck. But the truth is, that's fucking life, right? That's what we all have to deal with time to time again. It's all about how you come out the other end. My mom's brother used to say, always forward, never straight. Something like that. I can't remember the saying. I gotta ask somebody. But I'm remembering it in my head. Yeah. So it'll be fun. I'm trying to take a vacation in October. It's just, again, it's kind of a financial thing that involves plane tickets and that whole jazz. So I will get that set up, hopefully. I'm thinking about maybe just renting an RV or something. And then just picking it up down there with my dad or something like that. That's how I felt about Miami. Home didn't feel like home anymore. And mostly because of greed. Yeah. Always forward, never straight. Like running from someone trying to shoot you. Yeah. Hey, Patrick. So it's a situation of like the economic strife, right? And poor planning on my part, of course. Because I didn't really expect to ever have to move. Like, my rent was low, life was good, that whole 9 yards, right? And you get a little bit complacent, and then you realize all that complacency gets you fucked real quick. But, that complacency and getting this shit apartment and having to live here the way that I have been did create the show. So I have that to thank. And, eventually, when I do move, and I can move, hopefully whatever it is the fuck I end up doing, it is fun. And I can make a splash in whatever it is I'm involved. So that's always what I try to do. In general, just in politics and the whole libertarian thing and everything, I just try to be unique. And hopefully if you can do that, it doesn't matter where the fuck you are on the map. But, yeah, people don't listen to anybody from Alaska. Part of that's because I don't think people look at our LP very seriously. But that is what it is. Nothing I can really do about that at this point. Oh yeah. Spicer. All right. Yeah. I think we're going to wrap it here. Well, actually, I said we'd try to do one more story, so I'm going to stay true to my word. I'm going to go to Fox News, the front cover for U.S. politics. And I'm just curious. I'm going to just look here at what we have. Oh shit. Yeah, we can look at this story. Oh, I'm so happy that I ended up going over here. I found something I actually want to read. Texas father shoots pair of teens. Texas father shoots pair of teens who attempted to rob car with infants inside. The teens attempted to open the SUV rear door, where the children were seated. A Texas father shot two attempted robbery suspects who approached his SUV with his wife and two infants inside. Police announced Monday. Husband and wife arriving at the home just after midnight. I just want to see if they charged him. I bet they didn't. Police have not released any identifying father. Police have opened an investigation into the incident, but the father was within his rights to open fire. Oh, wow. Compare that to your fucking New York, California bullshit. I think it's New Jersey or one of those fucking areas where you have, like, you have to flee. Yeah. That's a fucking sad story, but good ending. Yeah. I think we can end it here, guys. I hope everybody has a nice day. You can get away with more in Texas. Yeah, well, that's kind of the same laws we got here. Everybody have a nice night or morning, depending on where you're at. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.